Hello there, this is Ajmal the developer and welcome back to HTML tutorial number 13 on HTML entities, symbols and emojis. So this tutorial will be a short tutorial. I just want to show you these three different techniques that is used in HTML documents to display certain symbols, emojis, and entities on browser that you cannot otherwise type them using your keyboard. So without further delay, let's go ahead and open our usual document. And as you can see, the outlook is different. This is pretty dark and sophisticated, as you can see all these functionalities. And the reason why is because we're using Visual Studio Code today, which is a very robust code editing software, and it is designed by Microsoft. So if you have Windows operating system, it is best to go with Visual Studio Code because it's quite intuitive and it has a lot of functionalities. And this would be the best way to go ahead and start coding your documents. So we're gonna start with our usual HTML documents. So I'm gonna declare the document type here. And if you noticed, the closing tag was applied by itself. So that's one of the amazing things about Visual Studio Code. And we're gonna open the HTML tag, and as you can see, it's already suggesting by itself. And did you see that the closing tag applied automatically? So that's the beauty of VS Code. So after HTML, I want to apply the head section because we need to insert our metadata in there, which you will see shortly. And as you can see, the closing tag applied automatically. And after heading, obviously we're gonna have to apply the body section. So body, and that's it. So it's quite fast, as you can see. And after body, we're gonna apply our H1 tag. H1, and in between H1, I'm gonna copy and paste our heading for this tutorial. And next up is our paragraphs. So first paragraph, I'm gonna write I will display entity. Is that how you spell entity? Yes, entity. Yeah. So we're gonna copy and paste this twice to make it pretty quicker. Alright, so next up is symbol, and last one is emoji. Okay, so why don't we add our columns as well? Or, yeah, columns. Okay, so before we go ahead any further, I want to point out these three important descriptions. So first things first is the entity. What is HTML entity, you might ask? So this would be the definition. An HTML entity is a piece of text or a string that begins with an ampersand and ends with a semicolon. And entities are frequently used to display reserved characters which would otherwise be interpreted as HTML code, and invisible characters like non-breaking spaces. So what essentially they mean is that if you were to, for example, if you wanted to display this less than symbol in your browser, you cannot just type it like so, because what happens is the browser would interpret this as the closing tag or opening using a curly bracket, which is for the opening and closing tags. So you can see how problematic it could be. And the people that designed this software, they came up with a clever solution, and that is, you guessed it, entity. So in order to display the list and symbol, the entity name is, like I said, it starts with ampersand, LT, and semicolon. So that stands for less than, or less than sign. Why don't we save this and run this on our browser to see that in action? So the way on VS Code, the quicker way to run it on your browser is just right click anywhere on that page and then go down, open in other browsers. And I have the Google Chrome here, so we're going to click on that. And as you can see here, we have our less than sign displayed. So that is all it takes, and that's how it works. And for your curiosity, I can actually delete the entity name and just directly type that list and symbol and see what happens. And we're going to actually save this, and for the demonstration purposes, we're going to go ahead and run, and let's see what happens. That's interesting. It still shows up here, but as you can see, my my browser is running on my local machine, which is my C user and my local disk. So maybe that is why it's working. But if you were to run this on a server and host your website, it would crash for sure, and it will not work. So don't be fooled by this. This is one of the vulnerabilities. And it's always best to make your code robust so that it doesn't break. And just because your code would work in one scenario, it doesn't mean that it would work under other scenarios and conditions. It's always best to make your write your code or design your code in a way that it can scale and it can be maintained under different circumstances. So we're gonna minimize this. We're gonna go back to the way it was. And so with that out of the way, we'll move to the next item, which is symbol. So the definition is HTML symbols like mathematical operators, arrows, technical symbols, and shapes are not present on a normal keyboard. It is true. For example, a smiley face is not present on your device, on your, say, laptop keyboard or any other symbol. So for that, you would have to actually know the name for the symbol or the abbreviation for the symbol. To add these symbols to an HTML page, you can use the HTML entity name, or the symbol entity name rather, or the HTML symbol name, not entity. My bad. So let's display a smiley face on our browser. So the symbol name for a smiley face is ampersand, or rather, my bad, I was mistaken with emojis, not smiley face, but symbols such as copyright, which is C inside the circle, or registered inside the beside any registered trademark. So those characters are not also present on your keyboard. So for that, you need to have the symbol name, not emoji, but symbol. Sorry for that mix-up. So let's go ahead and display the copyright symbol. So for copyright symbol, the symbol name is, again, ampersand, the word copy, and semicolon. So that should be the symbol for copyright. We're going to save this and run this on our browser. We're going to refresh this here. As you can see, we have our copyright symbol here. So that's for that. And the next important item is emojis. We use emojis nowadays in everyday life and everyday conversation to add emotions and mood to your message, because a message can be interpreted in any way possible. So you want to make sure that the person next to you or the opposite of you knows what you're trying to convey. And for that, we're gonna before we do that, let's define this. So emojis are characters from the UTF-8. UTF-8 is the character metadata set, which is this metadata. So it's basically a library of symbols, names, and they are identified by certain codes. And for a developer to display any emoji, they would actually go to the list and pick their character set, and then they would display that in their code. And one important part is to be sure to add this metadata in your heading section. Otherwise, it might work in some of the browsers, but mostly it would not. And, for example, maybe it would work on your desktop, but it wouldn't work on maybe cell phone screen or tablet. So it's always best to add this metadata in between the head to make sure that it never fails. Again, you always have to look for the holes in your code and make sure that nothing goes wrong. So don't leave any chances. So again, emojis are characters from the UTF-8 character set. You must start the entity number with ampersand, hashtag, and end it with semicolon. Like I said, be sure to add the metadata in the heading section, which we just did. Sorry. And let's go ahead and add the emoji name for this, or emoji abbreviation for this smiley face. So what it is ampersand again, hashtag 128512 and semicolon. So that's that, and let's save this and run it again. So that's it. You have the smiley face. So again, HTML entities, symbols, and emojis. So we have our first entity, we have our symbol, and we have our emoji. And obviously we have tons of these emojis, symbols, and entities. And if you wanted to have a full list of them, you can simply search it online like such. We can just we can search it online right now. HTML symbols code. So you can see numeric code, the character, description, and so on. There is a ton of these information on the internet, so definitely have no problem. So let's go back to our document, and this concludes our tutorial for today, tutorial number 13 on HTML entities, symbols, and emojis. Hopefully you find this tutorial useful and you did learn a few tips and tricks on HTML, and appreciate your time and attention, and hope to see you in HTML tutorial number 13, and you have a great day.